Ready? Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jake New substituting for Carl Gillis, who is gone again. He left today for Singapore and a number of places in the Orient and won't be back for about 3 weeks. So he asked me to stand in for him today on the Hawkins show. And I told him that I'd be glad to because I had some special guests that I wanted to bring to this program. First, though, let me introduce the panel. It's our regulars, but we hope they're always new listeners. So on my left, Louis Alexander, Harold Daly, Duane Gritzbackcloth, Skip Spivey, Joe Giuliano, and Frank Lewis. I want to read you about these two people who are our special guests, Muwrit and Pieter Vedder. And I'm going to read a little of this information I got from I don't know where I got it, but I want to read you some of it. These people, first let me tell you that Pieter is the youngest son of a market gardener, and that's important as you find out what he will do or what he has done. And he was born in the Netherlands, or as we still sometimes say in South Georgia, in Holland. He grew up during the tough times of the late 30s, and of course that was when Hitler was coming to power and World War II started, and then of course the post-war period of the 50s. He studied agriculture. Now if I make a mistake here or they've made a mistake, you correct me.
Oh, yeah.
He studied horticulture and horticultural engineering in
Wageningen, yeah.
And then served 2 years in the Dutch Army. In 1955, he started working for the Dutch government as an extension service officer to help develop the agro industry in the southern part of the Netherlands. He had a special interest, and we'll learn more about that a little later, for mushroom cultivation. Now, in 1963, he established the world's first mushroom training center in Horst, I assume that's in the Netherlands,
The southern part of the Netherlands,
where he was director until July of 1983. Through the Dutch government and for the World Bank, he has been sent to several mushroom projects of different underdeveloped countries. In 1982, he received the prestigious Sinden Award in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the mushroom industry. And the part that is so good for us is that in August of 1983, he accepted the function of Vice President Training and Development for the Campbell Soup Company's Mushroom Division, one of the biggest producing companies in the world. And that is he and Muwrit, moved to Dublin. Of course, he traveled a lot even while he was here. Now, let me tell you about her. She, too, worked for the Dutch development, and she has developed into an internationally recognized expert in the field of mushroom harvesting and post-harvesting and quality control. And now I know why you always went with him, Muwrit. I didn't realize that you had your own expertise in the same field.
There are other reasons as well, but it's one.
Now, I don't know as much about this last part, but in 1989, he started working for Funga del Mantello, which is the biggest mushroom producing company in Italy. And I know that he travels and has been traveling all over the world since then because every time I look up, he's coming or going. Pieter, tell, or Muwrit, however y'all want to do this, tell us first something about where all you have lived and under what conditions, and perhaps I'll be leading up to something I want to ask you later. But tell us about maybe just some of your travels and where all you've spent a fair amount of time and where you've made your home.
After the Netherlands, then during the time that we lived in the Netherlands, I did already some consulting work for several companies all over the globe. And as you mentioned already, partly was work for the World Bank. But at that time, Campbell Soup was trying to hire us, and So at a certain moment, we made a decision. At that time, we have to make a decision between two companies. One was a company in Indonesia, the other one was Campbell Soup. And for several reasons, we said, okay, let's work with Campbell Soup. And then at that time we designed, that was part of the reasons that we came in contact with Campbell Soup. They asked me to design what they call a Dutch technology mushroom farm. That was a kind of revolutionary technology at that time. So they asked me to help them to design that farm, what has been built in Dudley after that. And after that another one in Hillsborough, Texas. So that was it. And during that time I actually worked for Campbell International. And so we had to serve also farms in Canada and in Australia. And in our free time, we once in a while stopped by in Italy because I did some consulting work already before that farm, Funghi del Montello, near Venice in Treviso. And that Indonesian company was still, even during the period that we worked for Campbell Soup, was still asking, let us know anytime if you aren't happy over there, then come work for us in Indonesia. Okay, making a long story short, Campbell Soup, in our opinion, made a mistake because they moved us from Georgia to what you call up north. Huh? And so we gave it a good try in Pennsylvania because there's where the division office is. But really, we couldn't find it over there. No, we said that's absolutely the wrong decision. And so we quit. And because we didn't like to live there. And then at the very same time, the company in Italy was asking again and again, come work for us. And so at that time, we believed that Italy is more or less what we found in Dublin, Georgia. So we moved to Italy, and we bought a lot over there, and that is it. But no, okay, it was, we are Europeans, so we thought, oh, we will make it over there, but that was not Georgia. We couldn't forget our friends and the community here, and we were a little bit disappointed. And our philosophy always has been, if you aren't happy what you are doing, then change, do something. But okay, we accepted already the situation that we said, okay, until a couple of years more, until retirement, we have to live in Italy. And then after we finish the job, and as soon as we are retired, then we go back to Dublin, Georgia.
All right, let me see. You've lived, though, in Europe, of course.
Yeah.
You lived in Asia.
Yeah, but that was later on.
Of course, yeah, but I'm trying to get all the places you've lived in North America, Pennsylvania. Yeah, that is somewhere up north.
Maybe you need a map, then I can tell you where it is.
We don't ever go there, you see. But you have also been to Australia. I guess the only continent you happen lived in or mentioned is Africa. Or
we worked in South Africa.
You have done that.
Yeah.
I thought I was
South America.
Eastern Europe. But after Italy, and that was the point, although we accepted already that for the rest of our working period we have to live there, then as a call from heaven came a telephone call from the same company in Indonesia, and they said, where have you been? I said, okay, we went around a little bit. Oh, you have to work for us because... and that came, I said, but dear company in Indonesia, we have one big thing, and that is we like to work for you, but we like to live in the United States. And they accepted that, say, okay. So since then, we came back to Georgia, and commuting more or less for a couple of years to Indonesia. So we
That's
had
a pretty good commute.
Yeah, we did quite some mileage.
Built a home.
Built a home, had it built. He designed it, and
yeah. In the meantime, that we were working over there, one of the Dublin builders, Randy Clark, he built a house. We gave him the drawings, and we trusted him and said, okay, that's the way we like to have it, and go ahead. And for 99%, he did what we are looking for. No, that's more or less the story. So
I don't know how to move about asking you this. Maybe they would ask some questions that would lead you to tell us. But what we're wanting to do, basically, is find out, well, all these places you lived, and I know some of them were very picturesque, like Indonesia, and some of them were very cosmopolitan and all, but why Dublin? And then maybe we'll have some questions from the panel.
yeah.
Or do you-
Muwrit is
Muwrit, you have to say a word.
yeah,
You
women
tell us
are
about
for a
some
big
of-
part.
Why Dublin? First of all, the climate. We love this climate. Even the nets, people complain about them here, but if you have been around like we, you won't complain ever about nets. And so the climate, that's one thing. The space we have here, the freedom, the choice of whatever you can find all the products you want. You can go shopping, cosmopolitan, go to Atlanta. Here, right in this area, we have expanded enormously. In 10 years, Dublin has grown a lot and changed. So the availability of everything here, and you can get everything. You have access to everything. In Europe, you set an aim, you say, I want to achieve that. You have to go through a lot of red tape and a lot of rules and regulations. By the time you reach it, you are almost dead or retired or whatever. They don't cooperate as much as over here. And
If we talk about building a house
Building,
here
yeah.
with our European friends or family members, they don't believe you. If you have to build a house over there, we bought a lot in Italy, as I told you, and we started with an architect, and the architect figured out that we bought the wrong lot, of course, and because it was in an earthquake area, and the foundation costed, it was not that much, maybe an extra $10,000 here and another, and then all the red tape, as Muwrit already mentioned, and here. Yeah, you tell the builder
start.
that's what and you make sure that you have some dollars. That's important here. You need some dollars, huh? That we figured that out. But at least next week they start without making problem. Now another reason, a good reason is nowhere in the world you will find that kind of personal freedom. Here you can. Within the limits of the law, but you have to respect. But you can do, you can go, you can whatever you think. And that kind of freedom, religious, political.
I'm going to ask one question, and then I'm going to turn the panel loose to you. I am interested in one thing that you said. If you were still living in Holland, and say you had enjoyed the same amount of success as you have, where do you think you would be living? I mean, in what type building? Would you have a nice big home out in the several acres of land, or would you be in an apartment in
Holland?
Amsterdam or somewhere?
Oh my goodness. If you like to live like we do now, we build not a big house, but a nice one, yeah, here somewhere in Holly Hills. Now, believe me, for that kind of property, that kind of house, you better be a millionaire in Europe. You can't afford it. I mean, beside the fact that you cannot buy such a piece of land where you can have a creek around and water and birds and whatever. I mean, people in the United States, especially in this, maybe in this area, they don't realize how spoiled, how blessed they are. Huh? They don't realize that because, you take it for granted, but...
Well, that was the point I wanted to make, is I expect 90% of the people in Amsterdam live in homes, some of them 400 or 500 years old, don't they?
Yeah, or at least, even if it is a new apartment building, but at least it's very small, and you no parking space and whatever. Huh?
All right, we'll start at our left. We go around once so everybody will get a chance to ask a question. Louis?
Well, I think one of the things that Jake really wanted you to say about Dublin and Georgia and the Southeast in particular is the hospitality and the people that you have been associated with. I know I've been associated with both of you, just as Jake has, since you first came to Dublin, rode in through the Catholic Church and whatever. But that was one of the things that I've done a little bit of travel, not worldwide, like I have been all the way around the world, but Uncle Sam told me to, and I wasn't very happy about that. But I know what you're talking about as far as the locale and the, but I like the people here better than even the people in Atlanta, to tell you the truth. And both of my sons live in Atlanta.
That's just too far north.
Yeah.
Okay, Harold.
Well, of course, I'm also a transplant into Dublin. I've got a little more duration than you two have. I come here in 1956, and I'd had an opportunity to travel some in Georgia and spend several nights in Dublin, and I met some very nice people, and my company decided to transfer me here. Well, I asked where they wanted me to locate. They said, that'll be up to you. So I didn't have much figuring out to do. So we began immediately to look and secure a place to live here. A city afforded us of everything we were looking for. The schools were good, churches, various other things, as well as shopping. And I've often told people that Dublin is a place big enough to serve you and small enough to care. And of course, I've also had the opportunity to do some traveling in your country, and you left a lot of beauty.
Yeah.
There's nothing any prettier than Holland, and as we still call it, in the spring. I've had two different occasions I've been able to visit Kufenhof Gardens, and that's, I think, is about the highlight of any garden I've seen anywhere.
But you see, we tried to bring a little bit Keukenhof to Dublin, Georgia. We just planted quite a bit of bulbs, and although it's a small scale. But important is, you more or less indicated that people in Europe ask us, or even in the United States, why in the world Dublin, Georgia? I mean, such a little town. But don't forget that the road system and the modern ways of transport. I mean, a couple of hours you are in Atlanta, which is a cosmopolitan city. You like the sea, you go the other way, Savannah is close. You like skiing in the mountains, a couple of hours north, there you are. So, I mean, you don't miss really anything. And
About the biggest thing that I see that perhaps the Europeans would miss here would be the rapid rail transportation. And
but on the other hand, you compensate that. I'm not saying that a more organized public system, transport system, could do some good. But on the other hand, you pay such little for the gas here. Huh?
That's right.
I mean, there is.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Grits,
That's a
let me
secret.
pick up, we got to get her on around. Now, Duane is one of, or Grits as we call him. Grits. You ever heard anybody named Grits?
I have heard it since we came.
Yeah. He and I grew up in this county, so but he was gone a long time, and he came back.
Yeah, I was born in this county, but I was gone about 25 to 28 years. But then after retiring, I come back, and I think I like Dublin so well because to me, it's easier to live here than it is in a big place, much easier. And I'm glad to hear you say you like Holly Hills, because I live in Holly Hills also.
We didn't know that.
How much? What is the difference? Is there a great difference in the economy in all these places you live than say Georgia?
Oh yeah. Especially if you talk about working like we did in South Africa or in Indonesia, and we do quite a bit of work in India as well, in the southern part of India, but that are enormous differences. And that's what we learn from the two of us, from work in those countries. Every time, if you come back from such a trip, you appreciate so much more what you have here home.
Well, that's the way I feel about it.
Oh yeah.
Frank?
Up until the mushroom plant was put out at Dudley, I always thought they grew in caves.
Yeah.
When did this change take place, and what's the difference?
Already a long time ago. Originally, you have to realize that a mushroom is not a green plant, so it can live without sunlight. And then in mid-1700, somebody figured out in France that talking about a certain humidity and a certain temperature, in those caves, there is that kind of humidity and that kind of constant temperature, and they don't need light. So, smart enough, you start growing in the caves. But there is no need to do that. You can grow them in the light, because, of course, in the woods they grow during daylight as well. But they can live in the dark, and that is the common mistake, that they say, okay, you have to grow them in the dark.
Okay, well, that's one of the, you've answered one of the
Yeah.
things I was concerned about. I thought it had to be, up until that time, I thought it had to be in a cave. Where
No.
Joe Giuliano, as you may know, his parents came over from Italy.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you're next up.
Well, I moved here in 1953, and the thing that I have enjoyed in this community has always been the people. The society is totally different here than anywhere that I've seen. It's not as structured. It crosses all the lines of age and economic standards and all that, which I've never seen. Now, have you noticed any difference between the social life of the European countries and the social life that we have here in Dublin?
That much that we always feel like we are family here. That's really the feeling. It's a big extended family. We don't really miss our real family. We love them. Sometimes you wish they could walk in and visit, or we could go there easier. But it never really hurted, and you make up so well for that. That's
Next week, Dad will walk.
Yeah, my dad is coming, so he's already addicted to Dublin. This is the third time. I mean, he's coming back.
moving here on the
He
4th.
loves it,
Well,
especially the people.
I
Yeah,
think I've met your father before.
you did. You sure did. Yeah.
Didn't your father sing in our church?
That was Muwrit's
Oh,
father.
it's your
dad?
father?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he will again
She
if you
sang in our
ask him.
church, and we're going to ask
You
him.
had a brother that came over,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked to a niece in North Andover, Massachusetts the other night, who is a school teacher.
3 minutes.
And she has a lady working with her from Marietta, Georgia. And she said, I have an uncle living in Dublin. You know where it is? She said, yes, I've been through Dublin. She said, everybody goes through Dublin thinks you need to live in Dublin. So see, we all have a reputation for that all over the country.
Yeah.
Sir, we just got a little time, so I'll move on. Skip?
Well, I'm not going to take long, because everybody knows the reason I'm in Dublin, Georgia, because my sweetheart, Mary Jane, lives here. I do want to ask you 2 short ones, though. You visited our church and other churches, I'm sure. What's the biggest difference in the churches here and in Europe?
Size.
Size?
The size.
You have too many and too small.
Yeah.
Too small?
Yeah, I mean, most of them, if you see in a community like Dublin, and you compare that with a community in Europe, you will not have 40 different ones, but maybe 3 or 4, and automatically then the size of the community is bigger. As you know, we are Roman Catholic, and that is a minority in Dublin, Georgia, or in general in the south. And that depends on which part of the country you live in Holland. If you are in the southern part, then most is Roman Catholic. That's the way you are.
But when you go to hear a sermon, are there a lot of people who listen to sermons over there?
It is
Compared to
a pity that we have to say that there's less and less and less. Huh? Yeah,
That was what
especially.
I saw in Europe, but you see a lot of old Catholic churches there, but they don't even have a congregation anymore.
Well, I know you've been praising Dublin an awful lot here,
Yeah.
but I've just got to ask you, if there was one major thing that you thought we ought to work toward bettering around here, what would it be? Both of you.
Planting bulbs in Stubbs Park. Add some color.
Right. Good.
I can't
That's
do
a
it by
good one.
myself, but
Right.
We got, what, a couple of minutes or less? All right.
I should say there is a movement going on now. Those marches in certain areas that I think keep the community safe, and as it has been in the past, and try to, if there are elements coming up where you say, hey, we better take care of that, I think, and part of that is the drug traffic, and I think I should be strong on that and work on the moral and so on. Because that's part what we found at that time, and Sometimes if you follow the newspaper and the news, then looks like if we are losing a little bit ground in that area. That should be a pity.
We have 1 minute, time for one quick question to you, Muwrit. Where do you think is the place you enjoyed living best, not counting Dublin?
Where's the place?
Not counting
I
Dublin.
think that will be next life.
That's a great answer. Well, we've run out of time. We may have to have you all again because we just got started here, but I do want to thank you, Muwrit, and you, Peter, for coming and being with us. I'd remind our friends that if you don't see this show at 8:30 tonight, it'll be on again at 12:30 Tuesday and Thursday. And we hope you'll tune in then. Next week, we'll be back, and I think Albert Mullis will be our moderator, and we'll see you then.